Greetings, my friends. It is today, the 4th of July, 2023, and all is where it should be. Today, we have a very important topic to tear into, and that is the transits of the lunar nodes to Aries and Libra. This is a massive topic that you need to hear about, and we're going to go into its implications for the collective and for us as individuals. I'm also going to help you figure out what this may mean for you and what are some potential areas of impact if you follow this video to the end. Now, the lunar nodes, if you're already familiar with them in astrology, at least by name, at least if you're loosely familiar with what they are, you may know that they are very important in terms of our personal and collective development and our experience of life. You may also know they are quite misunderstood and underrepresented. A lot of the times we tend to focus on other planets which may be a bit more glamorous. And of course, it's those people who choose to talk about them that make them glamorous. There's not necessarily something in astrology that is more glamorous than something else by its very nature, unless we choose to give it that glamour, right? And in modern astrology, not to go on a rant, I do miss going on these rants because I haven't in a long time, but in modern astrology, we tend to focus too much on, Pluto, Neptune, higher octaves this, higher octaves that, and we miss what is really mysterious and mystical and fascinating, which is, in my opinion, the most mystical, mysterious, and interesting elements in astrology are the lunar nodes, and I'm going to explain why. Now, in brief, what do the lunar nodes represent? The lunar nodes are found at the point where the trajectory of the moon meets the trajectory of the sun. They intersect, and that's why when you have a new moon or a full moon on one of the nodes, there are two nodes, right? Because they intersect twice. Once when the moon goes northward, once when the moon goes southward. There we have the north node and the south node. And whenever a new moon or a full moon happens at one of the nodes, you may already know this, but for everyone who doesn't, we have an eclipse. And as interesting, a powerful, mesmerizing event as an eclipse is, it kind of fades into insignificance compared to what the lunar nodes actually mean from astrological point of view in terms of our evolution, our experience of life. One very oversimplified explanation of the lunar nodes is that they are kind of our karmic compass, where we come from karmically and where we're going. And of course, the karmas that we generate, we're not talking about, karma is like out to get you, like because of the bad things that you did. No, karma is the results of your actions, cause and effect. You took an action, whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's neutral, it produces some form of karma. And that, in turn, will set up certain patterns for you in the future, right? We can work with it. We can understand. It's not something that controls us absolutely unless we're unconscious. Then it absolutely does. If someone is unconscious about the basic laws of cause and effect and of life and of existence, that karma absolutely controls your life 100%. The more you become aware of these processes, the more karma is a tool that you yourself can use. But see, as long as we are alive in a physical body, we never really escape karma. This idea that somehow if you evolve past a point while still in the physical body, you're free of karma is absolutely false. You can use karma, you can become the master of karma. You can never truly become free of it unless you're out of the body. And even then, there can be some debate of what constitutes karma in the energetic, ethereal realms and what doesn't. So, that being said, the lunar nodes, in oversimplified terms, represent our karmic pools, the karmas that our soul is pulled towards, that it desires, that it's mesmerized, hypnotized by. Because remember, the soul, the human soul, has to be kind of fooled into taking up a physical body, because why would you? You're a soul, you're free, you're out in the ether, you're totally free, right? You don't have to eat, you don't have to go to the toilet, you don't have to suffer emotionally because someone left you, and you're out there, and for some reason you choose to go into all of these things, all of these limitations in a physical body to experience something. And so that something has to represent a very powerful desire for you, but it also has to fool you enough, because really, why would you otherwise as a soul, right? Something has to mesmerize you. It has to hypnotize you. And that is the North Node. It's the North Node that does that. It pulls your soul force in by creating a powerful desire for you. And oftentimes that desire is a false one. Actually, it's always a false one. It's a desire for false things. It's not a desire for real things. It's not a desire for things that are absolutely real, because what is absolutely real? But it's a desire for something that is illusory. It's an illusion of the physical realm, and we desire that so strongly that we incarnate. Now, on the other hand, we have the South Node, which is kind of the opposite of that. We're here in the middle of that process, and we get enough of what we desired in order to learn our lessons, to develop spiritually, personally, to whatever extent the soul thought it necessary, because the ultimate goal of this is not just to fool the soul, like, haha, I got you. It's to pull the soul into some processes that teach it some qualities, that make it develop some qualities, that make it grow, that make it expand, that make it become more powerful, right? So experience is ultimately the goal of the soul. We can look at it this way. And so in order to create that experience, it needs to have a desire. And that's where the North Node comes in. And then once we have enough of that experience, the South Node comes in and says, you know what, we're bored with that. We learned enough. We perfected that. We've been through that, been there, done that. Let's tear it apart. Let's scatter it in the wind. Let's get rid of it so that we can pursue either a new karma or liberation. And the South Node does represent liberation, while the North Node does represent entanglements, obsession, dependence, typical things that come with strong desires and pulls and urges in the physical, while the South Node comes with things like apathy, like disinterest, like not being drawn to things in the physical, being more drawn to the inner dimension, detachment, right? We know that in order to go within, we must first detach from the outer, from desire towards results in the outer. So not to get too metaphysical about what the lunar nodes represent, but we need to know this in order to understand what the lunar nodes will do when they're in Aries and Libra. Because guess what? Aries and Libra, they're cardinal signs. The first sign is Aries, the seventh sign is Libra. And given how everything else is arranged and the times that we're living, the fact that the nodes are going into Aries and Libra is massive. Now, the lunar nodes spend about 1.5 years, about 18 months in each of the signs. So it's not like this happens once every 100 years. But again, given what the overall situation in the world is, and given how everything else is arranged, and given the events that we've been through over the past 2-3 years, this is going to be very important, and you should listen up. You should really listen up. First, we're going to talk about some of the collective consciousness level implications or societal level implications. We're going to go into a bit of the geopolitical implications as well. And then at the end of this video, I'm going to help you figure out something about how this will impact you. But again, take that with a grain of salt, because you really need to look at your chart with attention. The chart is as complex as a human being is, if you really get down to dissecting everything. So if you need help with that, if you feel that this is going to, bring important events into your life, if you resonate with this message, reach out to me. There should be a link down below. If not, just unifiedastrology.com. Now, I have here a chart. You can see it on the screen. Actually, I should have shown my face on the screen like this from the beginning, but I guess that's not important because that's not what we're here for. Forgot about this part. We have the chart here on the screen, and this is the Ingress chart for the nodes going into Aries. We see here Rahu, RA. This represents the North Node in Aries, and KE in Libra. The fact that the ascendant is in Libra is a coincidence. I have this chart on the East Coast of the United States since most of you watching are from there. And this happens on the 17th of July, 17/7 of 2023. We're already feeling the effects of this transition because the nodes are on the final little bits of Taurus and Scorpio. Remember that the nodes go backwards in the chart, not direct like the rest of the planets. They always go backwards, except for some little moments when they station, and but those are negligible. Anyway, and interestingly, on the East Coast, this moment is at 13:33. The time, Washington, D.C. is 13:33 at the moment of ingress of the nodes into Aries and Libra. I'm not sure exactly what that means. I'm not going to lie. I do understand some numerology, but the 13s always freak me out. I'm not going to lie to you. Anyway, I'm not a numerologist. I'm an astrologer. So let's look at some astrology here. This is a very interesting setup. First of all, we see that, what do we have at the moment when the nodes change signs? We have a new moon in Cancer. Does that matter? Well, that's the sign of the moon. We have a new moon in the sign of the moon. What else is it about this moon? It's in a square to the nodes. So already we're getting, because remember, the nodes are formed by the sun and the moon. So the fact that we have a new moon in a square to the nodes, first of all, it's forming a kite. Actually, it's forming a whole cross with Pluto. I couldn't possibly go over everything in this video. I'm going to try to summarize it for you. But the idea is, first of all, we have something massive happening over the next 1.5 years. There's been massive things happening every year for the past 3 years. So, as I said at the beginning of 2020, if you go back to my video talking about the aftermath of the, I don't know if YouTube has a problem with the disease thing anymore, but if you go to my video talking about the aftermath of that, I told you that things are not going to simplify. They're not going to go back to normal. Things are going to get crazier and crazier. And here we are, and you know about the other crazy things happening in the world. I told you back then, don't buy into the spin of things. If the media is repeating the same message over and over and over again, it's probably a lie. Ask yourself why they want you to believe that. And I'm not going to say much more about this because reasons. Now, the nodes in Aries and Libra. So what does this mean when, first of all, again, this cross has massive implications. Whenever you see a cross, whenever you see even a square, it means that there's something intense happening. There's something important happening. You see the full cross here, it's massive. It's going to be huge. And it's going to be so huge that you're probably going to hear about it. You might not know that you're hearing about it because things develop over time, right? But it might be heard over the next few days. In fact, pay attention to what is circulated in the news. Again, don't necessarily buy it and believe it. Look at it as, oh, they want me to believe this about it. They're going to tell you about some events. There may be some interesting events actually starting tomorrow. Maybe starting the 5th of July, there's going to be some interesting events. You know, there's conflicts going on in the world. They're always on the news. But starting tomorrow, you may be like, oh, what is this? You know, this is new. But in any case, this month, we're going to see what the North Node in Aries is about. And we need to talk about the conflicts because Aries, guess what? Aries is the god of war. Mars rules Aries. Mars is the planet of war, of conflict, of aggression, of will. Wars are a battle of wills, right? And there's a lot of battle of wills going on, such as we haven't seen for almost 100 years now. So A lot of battle of wills, a lot of conflicts, a lot of intensity. Now, this is going to be important to understand for our personal lives as well as understanding the situation in the world. Because guess what? If you're going to say, well, I don't really care about that, like I prefer not to focus on that, don't focus, don't worry, don't be anxious about it. Everything is where it should be, remember. But you're in this world. You cannot believe that you're gonna be like, just like, I don't want to hear it, I'm not hearing it, I'm gonna just like walk through life not being interested about what this whole planet is going through, and think that like you're special, you're just gonna like magically positive think your way through. Like, no, sorry, I have Saturn in the 9th house, like I gotta be this way. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. Now, the North Node creates new karmas. It draws us into new forms of karma, new patterns, new themes. It generates new themes, personally and for the collective. And whenever it goes into a sign, first of all, it creates some trouble in that sign, because I always like to compare the North Node with an infant learning how to walk. It's so obsessed with walking and to figuring out how to move, but it does so clumsily. It stumbles around, but it's so interesting, right? It's so captivating. Remember when we were children, how every little movement, jumping off a thing, was like such a thing, you know, like, wow, exciting. Now you can care less about those things, because why? The South Node, right? As I said, you've had that experience. You've learned what you had to learn, how to jump, how to keep your balance, how to walk, how to run. Now it's boring. Now you don't want to walk and run. Now you want to take the car. And so that's what the North Node represents, and that's what it does in each and every sign. Now remember, 1.5 years in each sign and goes retrograde. So the North Node has been in Taurus for the past 1.5 years. Economy, food industries. You know, just before it exited, banks started to fail, massive inflation, you know, all sorts of weird effects happening in the economies in the world. Sanctions, oh my God, like disruptions of all sorts of flows of energy, supplies, and all of that stuff. All of these Taurus things that have to do with the basic material needs, economy, supplies, goods, right, have been disrupted by the North Node. But of course, it's not just been the North Node. It's also been that the North Node at one point conjuncted Uranus. Uranus is still in Taurus, so the disruptions to Taurus will continue till 2026 while Uranus is there. But while the North Node has been there, it has been particularly intense. And the eclipses in November 2022, I have a video. It's actually the previous video, because you know, I make videos once every eclipse season, I guess. I told you that things, I'm not exactly sure what, but it's going to be massively disrupted. Told you that at the beginning of November. I think it was the 8th of November. Fast forward a couple of weeks, ChatGPT, AI revolution, all of these websites, platforms, things, that's going to, you know, not a billion people were left without a job overnight, but it's getting there, right? The revolution began a couple of weeks after I spoke about those eclipses, and soon after the eclipses actually took place. That was because of the North Node and because of Uranus, right? Now, the North Node goes into Aries. Think about what happened to the economies, to all of these things that I mentioned that are represented by Taurus, and transpose that to Aries things. And what does Aries represent? Again, willpower, aggression, taking action, dynamism, fire, conflicts. The conflicts that are raging in the world are going to have a different face. And remember, what I always say about the North Node is that the face that it starts to appear at the beginning, a new face starts to appear at the beginning, right? Whenever the North Node goes into a sign, a new face of that sign, a weird but an interesting face of that sign, a face that you didn't thought you would see appears. However, always remember that the first face you're seeing is not the final face. The faces are going to keep morphing, and The funny thing is, you're never seeing them clearly, because at the moment when the North Node finally exits Aries, that's when you can have a bit more clarity if you're paying attention. And you look back and you think, I wasn't getting anything about how things actually are. It was just a whole mesmerizing confusion. So the North Node creates that confusion. It creates very interesting events. It pulls us in. It makes us captivated. But it also lies to us. It also creates an illusion for us, right? Different than Neptune. It's a different kind of illusion. It's an illusion with a I guess there's a purpose to a Neptunian illusion as well, but Rahu is more like, okay, you need to go through this illusion because there's lessons you need to learn, and you can't have the clear picture of what it is in the beginning, because otherwise you don't learn those things. You don't let things arrange in those things. You're going to try to control them, right? So a lot of interesting things are going to happen. We're going to become, as a collective, we're going to become more willful, more self-absorbed, more concerned with ourselves, because those are the things that Aries represents. Aries is a bit selfish, but Aries is also take action. What do I want? That's what I want. I'm going for it. I don't care about anything else. That's what Aries is, right? Act now, think later. So is that a good or a bad thing? It may sound like, oh, that's not such a good thing. No, it could be a great thing. You know, if you've been stalling on things, on taking action on things for a long time, and this arranges in the right way for you, I'm not saying that the whole planet is just going to get up and be like super active from now on and everyone's going to take action on their dreams and achieve them. No, this needs to arrange for you in a particular way. But if it does, and you are going to be drawn to take more action in the matters of the house and other implications that surround Aries in your chart, but we're going to leave that for the end of the video. But as a whole, people are going to get more active, more dynamic, more angry, more aggressive, more willful, more ambitious in the positive as well as the not so positive ways. Again, this is going to bring out a lot of our tendencies more decisively. If we've been bottling up some negative emotions and feelings and thoughts, we're going to more readily take action on them. If we've been bottling up some wonderful dreams, some wonderful ideas that we would like to, but we were unsure about what steps to take, or the right opportunity hasn't presented, we may be presented with opportunities to act fast, and we may be more inclined to act fast and decisively, and to just like, you know what, like, I'm not going to be alive forever. Let me just do this. Doesn't sound realistic. Maybe I fail, but let me just go for it, because that go for it is what we're going to have to develop with the North Node in particular areas of our life. Now, not for everyone is this going to be a complete overview of who they are. It depends how this arranges for you. Now, on the other hand, and this is also very important, we tend to focus on the North Node because the North Node represents what interests us, what is going to captivate our attention, what is going to make our heart beat, and what is going to like, oh my God, what is this? I'm so interested in this. I'm so captivated by this. Again, maybe in a positive, maybe in a not so positive, maybe can't be really in a neutral way. You can't really be neutral about the North Node. You either love it or hate it. And sometimes it's both, and you never really know how you're going to wake up regarding it. Am I going to hate it or am I going to love it today? Right? But the South Node kind of goes under the radar in these processes, and is very important because the North and the South Node are not separate. They're actually one thing. They have a polarity, right? But they're one thing. They're one process. They're the process of going from where you've been to where you're going. And in order to go to where you're going, you need to be pulled in that direction by the North Node, but you also need to be disconnected from the previous direction by the South Node. But it's actually just one. Right? It's actually just one process, but of course, duality and all that sort of thing. Now, the South Node in Libra, of course, when we become more willful, more ambitious, more aggressive, what do we give up on? What do we disconnect from? What do we become less interested in? Mitigation, accord, relationship, getting along, making sure everyone's happy, balancing out the situation. I'm not going to balance out anything. I want to go for it, man. You know? Now, for the world, for the collective, this has profound implications because the South Node in Libra means that going to give you an example. A lot of us that have been like, oh, I just, maybe I want to find this and that kind of relationship, and I want to get along, and I want to like meet someone like this and like that, or maybe I've been in this relationship or in this situationship and I've been so concerned with it and it's been taking up so much of my time. Now it's gonna fall out. It's just gonna be like, I'm just so exhausted about this. I don't care about it anymore. I just don't care about it anymore. I'm done. Now it's me time now, right? Aries. Now, going back to the conflicts in the world, the ranging conflicts, and it's not just one conflict. It's one conflict that they want us to pay attention to. And gosh, I want to say so many things about that, but I realize that it's not good for the channel and it's not good for the message or whatever else. But again, those of you who know and who understand and who can see if you look close enough. But again, maybe a lot of people that I talk to are like, you know what, I just don't want to bother about those things. I just want to see to my things, be healthy, be wholesome, and I respect that. But you need to know. So in the geopolitical sense, Libra represents diplomacy. It represents, again, agreements. Agreements are going to fall apart. A lot of agreements have been torn up over the past years. It's not a good thing. Again, everything is where it should be. It's not a good thing from the point that we're looking out and hoping that things are going to stabilize. Then it's not a good thing. But from the point of view that we have to kind of go through some birth pains as a planet, as a society, as a humanity in order to grow into something bigger. Because we've been in this state for thousands of years, it's time to grow into something else. We're not going to unless we have those birth pains. So from that point of view, maybe it's not bad. But for the near future, the fact that the South Node is in Libra does not look so good, because we're going to be less inclined to make agreements with each other. We're going to be less inclined to compromise. Existing agreements, existing relationships, existing situations where things have been mitigated, right? Have been appeased, will possibly fall apart. So politically, you're going to see the tearing of various agreements, the dismantling of various organizations, a break in communications, in bilateral communications between states, between various actors and parties, right? People are going to be less inclined to collaborate, to mitigate, to compromise. And you've seen a lot of that leading up to this, but this is going to be even more so. Now, in October 2023, Mars is also going to join the South Node in Libra, and that may be a particularly interesting moment because, first of all, Mars rules Aries, and you may think, well, this could actually, because the Mars conjuncts the South Node, what we let go of is some aspect of the conflict. And in October, some aspect of the conflict may actually die down, but also the diplomacy may die down, which is weird to think, but like we live in weird land for the past few years, so bear with me. Some phase of the conflicts, of the disagreements, of the disputes may end. However, this does not mean that people are going to get along more, if that makes sense. And it just means that some phase of this ends, but it doesn't mean that it ends completely, because the North Node here is up to some work creating more of Aries. The North Node creates more of whatever it touches. And that more of usually has 3 legs and 4 eyes and like a finger hanging out of its. It's weird, okay? It's unusual. Now, that's one moment. Of course, we also have to pay attention to the eclipses. Whenever eclipses happen, it punctuates, it highlights, it creates those clicks that, you click into a new paradigm, into a new reality, into a new theme, into a new form of things. So also pay attention to the 3 eclipse seasons that we're going to have during this time. Those are going to be very important as well. Mars is going to conjunct the South Node in October 2023. And then in spring 2024, I think it's May, it's going to conjunct the North Node in Aries. And that may actually be a massive intensification of the disputes, of the discords, but it also may be a massive opportunity to take action. It's probably going to be like something, okay, go now. If you're going, go now. Otherwise, you might as well stop, you know? So that's spring, May 2024, April, May 2024 is going to be intense. I'm not in Kansas anymore. I've told you that in 2020, but like we're kind of like going from one Kansas to another, kind of, you know? And it's going to be that way for decades, guys. It's going to be that way for decades. Now, at the moment of this ingress, Venus is the Atma Karaka, which is very important. That's the soul planet. That's the highest degree in Aries here. And it's about to go retrograde. So over the next few months, in terms of like diplomacy and agreements and relationships on a personal level, because I know that you guys are more interested in what does this mean for me and for like my twin flame. But I'm sorry. But Venus retrograde is coming up, and for all those things that Venus represents, for the economy, for diplomacy on the world stage, for relationships, for love, for our enjoyment, it's going to bring about some lessons. And it's going to bring about some lessons of, you know, selfishness, self-expression, courage, all of the good things and not so good things associated with Leo. Venus retrograde is about to start, guys. All right? And important lessons, especially given that the South Node is going to be into Libra. While the South Node is in Libra, we may have many karmic situations, many people from past lives that we either re-encounter, we may have re-encountered them this life, and now we need to complete some patterns so we can move on, or maybe we're going to encounter people that we need to wrap things up with in a decisive way. And no doubt someone like this is going to come up and you think, this is the one. I don't know. Maybe it is. I'm not saying that you can't meet the one while the South Node is in Libra. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that you need to pay attention to everything that's going on, because Venus retrograde, South Node in Libra, you get the picture. Now, going back to this Pluto in a cross to all of this, a lot of things are not going to be left standing after this transit of the North Node in Aries. A lot of things are not going to be standing. A lot of things are already like shaky. You think a lot of things are not standing now? Wait to the end of this transit. Now, let's get past the doom and gloom, and let me remind you, this is a massive opportunity. A lot of us that are aware, that are more awakened, not to say woke, because I just ate, and so a lot of us that are more awakened already not happy with exactly how society is, with exactly how we formed this thing like 5,000-6,000 years ago, and it's still working pretty much according to the same rules, plus minus some technology, right? It's going to be massive opportunity, guys. It's going to be massive opportunity. Get busy on your dreams. Get selfish about achieving whatever it is you want to achieve. Because guess what? I trust that you watching have good intentions. I trust that you have good ideas. I trust that you're divinely inspired. And guess what? The people who are negative, the people who want to destroy, the people who are greedy, the people who lie to you and want to control everything are going to be busy. They're gonna go for it. So the only defense is a good offense. Okay, so get busy on your dreams, go get it. Right now, for you personally, if you're gonna go get it, what exactly are we talking about? Now, this can be various things, because again, whenever we're talking about one sort of transit, we're kind of narrowing in on that and kind of like excluding the rest, because we can't possibly talk about everything at the same time or in one video. Again, astrology is very complex. But first of all, whole sign houses. Cast your chart with whole sign. You can do that on astro.com. I'm not sure if you can do that on Astro Theme. Astro.com. Whole sign houses, please. Equal houses also. Only after you've considered the whole sign houses, because that's going to be the main area where this transit is going to be felt for you. And as soon as the nodes enter, you're going to start feeling it, right? Let's say Aries encompasses 2 houses for you as per Placidus. Something I never use. I never use Placidus. Never. Not once. In the past 10 years have I used Placidus. Maybe not 10 years, but maybe the past 8 years. Never have I thought, oh, I wonder what this shows as per Placidus. Never. Not once. So let's say you have 2 overlapped houses in Aries, and let's say starting from here to here, let's say it's the 7th, and from here to here it's the 8th. The moment the North Node goes into Aries, even though you think, oh, that's my 8th house, you're gonna feel it in your 7th house. You're gonna feel it in your 7th house. No doubt about it. So this month, whatever whole sign house Aries is for you, you're going to start noticing changes. You've probably been noticing a desire for change, changes creeping in, something pulling you into that direction, perhaps unexpectedly. Things can be unexpected. They can feel fated, yet surprising with the North Node. So let's say Scorpio is your rising, right? So this makes Aries your 6th house. 6th house has to do with responsibility, has to do with a lot of things. Let's narrow it down a little bit for the sake of example. Let's say responsibility, work, employment, the things that you're obligated towards, the things that you're working on, your duties, right? Whether you're in terms of your employment or your duties at home or to obligations towards other people. Let's narrow it down to that. The 6th house can represent other things as well. Now, when the North Node goes into your 6th house, you may start looking for a new job. I want to get employed in a different place. What if I change my job? People at your workplace might start working, behaving differently. Or you may start seeing the situation with different eyes. Or some weird individual may show up and get employed at your place and are like, who's that? What is that? They change up the whole situation. Leadership changes. That changes the whole situation at your work. Your attitude towards responsibilities has to change. Your attitude towards whatever house this is and the matters that it represents. You're going to do your own research. I'm not going to go through all of the houses. Your attitude towards those things has to change. It will inevitably change. But it helps if you're aware that, okay, I'm in a 1.5 year period where I have to change my attitude towards these things. So I have to pay attention to what's happening and be aware of the changes that are naturally happening, and also take some amount of control. Don't try to, obsessively control how things are going to change, because you're not going to be able to. You're going to be disappointed. And be ready for some level of disappointment. Some, going back to the infant learning how to walk. Be willing to stumble a little bit and take some falls and get back up, and understand that you're not really seeing the situation for what it is, and you're just there to experience something, to learn something, right? And if that includes a few failures, well, so be it. Now, in whatever area this represents for you, be ready to encounter some unusual situations, perhaps some fated situations. Be ready to encounter some situations that kind of set you on the right path, though remember that you may not be aware of exactly what the right path is. You may think, I got it, but later you change your idea, because that's how the North Node operates, right? Be ready for all those. Be ready for willed and aggressive people showing up whenever you're involved with these things. So let's say, for example, it's your 4th house. If Capricorn is your rising, this is your 4th whole sign house. In your home, someone may start acting weird. You may get like a raccoon stealing something from you. They never happened. Raccoon walks into your house and just takes something from the table and walks. It may happen, right? Let's say this is your 9th house. You're going to be pulled to travel, to explore, to engage in philosophy, to explore things mentally and physically. That's what the 9th house is about. It's about exploring and the rules that apply to exploring. The guidance according to which we explore. That's why it represents philosophy, because philosophy is the guidance according to which we explore life. That's why the ninth house represents law, because the law is the guidance according to which we explore society. You want to explore society, you want to be a part of society, this is how you do it, right? So if it's in your ninth house, you may be traveling, you may be pulled to travel with this transit of the North Node, and you may encounter some, maybe you go to Spain every year or every couple of years, but this time it's different. For some reason, this time it's different, right? Apply that to any area represented by Aries in your chart. And I'm not just talking from your rising sign. Take the same whole sign houses from your moon. So for example, in this case, the moon is in Cancer. You'd go about it this way. Cancer, moon, Cancer. Cancer, you count it as 1. Always the sign in which the moon is, or whatever point you're trying to count houses from, you count it as 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, right? Your reputation, how you're seen in the world, and especially because it's the moon, your mental state regarding those things, your feelings regarding how you're seen in the world, how your reputation and how people treat you at large affects you mentally, emotionally, psychologically. That's what this represents from the moon chart. But it can represent just your overall career and public standing overall. So, again, then take the North Node in regard with these things. In the same way, something's going to change. Be willing to adapt, be willing to fail, be willing to go head to head with some unusual situations, and always keep in mind for everything, always keep in mind the fundamental energy, which is Aries. Okay? Now, your Libra house. Your Libra house, it's going to be difficult to pay attention to it. Some things are it's either going to be difficult to pay attention to, depending on how things arrange, because then Venus might be doing something like tickling something where you kind of, let's say it's your 7th house. Let's say it's plainly you're an Aries rising, right? And it's your 7th house. And this is your house of relationships. Well, usually we would say that with the South Node in the 7th house, we get more disinterested in our existing relationships. We may break up with someone. We may become more distant from our relationship. Even if we don't break up, it's not as cohesive or tight or in each other's business all day, right? Which can be a good thing, right? The South Node is relaxed. That can be a good thing. It doesn't mean that it's going to fall apart. But things are going to disconnect a little bit. Now, let's say Venus is tickling something, or something is tickling your Venus, and it makes you pay attention to relationships, but then there's the South Node here, and it's going to be like, well, it makes you drawn in, think like, I got to obtain something. I got to get this person to commit to me. I got to get this person to, go out with me or whatever. And then, but it just doesn't come together because of the South Node, because the South Node is so detached about obtaining concrete, palpable results. A lot of the times, the results that we seek, if we are interested, if it creates interest, it's just in order to clear something out. The North Node creates interest in order to bring something in. The South Node can create interest, but just in order to get you involved enough to look at it so they can finally let it go. All right? So, let me check here because I'm moving my screen and I don't know if you can still see me. Anyway, so yeah, in that area, in whatever area the South Node is transiting for you, prepare to let go of things. You're going to be less interested in those things, and it may be an important area of your life. It may be, let's say, the 4th house, your home. Like, oh my God, I should spend more time at home, like my kids, my husband, my wife. Like, I'm just like and when I'm home, like I can't pay attention to anyone when they're talking to me, like I'm such a terrible person. No, it's okay. You gotta manage that situation and know that this is more about you and what you want to do. Well, in this case, if this was your 4th house, this would be your 10th. And then it's more about like getting out there when you're outside, when you're in society, when you're trying to achieve something in the world, when you're trying to build up your reputation, your portfolio, whatever it may be. It's okay to take this time. It's not going to last forever. Nothing lasts forever. The only thing that's permanent is change. And change is probably the one keyword that encompasses both the nodes. It's change. Different kind of change, right? Now, from the North Node, Saturn is retrograde here, and it's in the 12th from the North Node. If we count from the North Node, 1, 2, 3, 4, 12. It means the Saturn is not having much bearing on the North Node. Means that a lot of this crazy and obsessed energy of North Node in intense and aggressive and willful Aries is unchecked by Saturn. Saturn is unable to, like, you know, Saturn is usually the voice of reason. They're like, okay, let's take it easy now. Let's, like, that doesn't go. Let's not do that. Not much of that. Throughout this whole transit, Saturn is going to be 12 from the node. And things are just going to let loose. So, guys, I don't know. I've kind of been rambling. As usually happens with these videos, I went on for longer than I wanted to, because a lot of the things that I want to say, you know, I have them in the back of my mind, but the way I'm going to say them and how I'm going to interconnect them kind of goes into the moment, so I don't have any text prepared or anything. And that's it. You know, I've considered like preparing something, but like that just doesn't work for me. So I hope this helps. And remember, you know, fire yourself up. Things are going to go intensely good and intensely bad in the world, in some areas of our life. That's just life. We're not in Kansas anymore. It's time to go. Thank you very much, and I'll see you on the next one. I don't know, you know, maybe the next one, maybe next year. Even though every time that something like this happens, I always say like, oh, I'm going to start making videos more often from now on. Over the past few years, I've just been slacking with videos. I've been trying to find my own with making these videos because, you know, I've tried weekly updates. Like, that's just not for me. Like, there's not something to talk about every other week. You know, every week, every other week. Just like, oh, your love report for like, no, could not. Like, Saturn in the 9th house, Virgo moon, that's just, I'm just sucked that way. Anyway. So I hope this helps. I hope that this gives you some amount of clarity. Tell me what you think in the comments. If you have any questions about anything that we spoke about in this video, let me know. Reach out to me. Website. You can mainly find me on Instagram at Unified Astrology. That's where I mainly operate from. And yeah, I don't know. Thank you for watching. If you're still watching now, I appreciate you. Goodbye.